Is Deadpool and Wolverine the movie that will save the MCU? I think your answer to that question depends on a couple of factors. Do you think the MCU even needs to be saved? And personally, even though it has certainly been off-peak since Endgame in terms of its cultural position and, quite frankly, in terms of the quality of most of the films, I think the narrative of the MCU in decline is grossly overblown. Commercially and creatively, it's really not in bad shape, but a lot of people just like to push that story because it's a compelling story. But even if you do think that the MCU needs saving, whether or not you think Deadpool and Wolverine is the movie to save it would depend on how you define saving it. Will it save it financially, commercially? Yeah, probably, at least for the time being. I can't really imagine a scenario where this movie doesn't make a huge pile of money. So it will certainly give the franchise a financial boost, a shot in the arm. But if you mean, will it save the MCU creatively? I don't know if it will or not. And it has nothing to do with the quality of the film. It's just that I don't see how this movie is going to have any ripple effect on the larger MCU, because despite how it's been marketed and despite how it's been, blatantly positioned by its stars, especially Ryan Reynolds, as the movie that's going to save the MCU, the movie itself has almost nothing to do with the broader Marvel Cinematic Universe. And that, by the way, is one of its strengths. Now, if you define saving the MCU by meaning breaking the perceived losing streak and just having a movie come out under the Marvel banner that is a good movie, that people will think is a good movie and will just sort of re-energize people's enthusiasm for the MCU just as a product, as an IP, then I think it might. Now, again, your opinions may vary. There have been some middling to negative reviews of the movie that I've seen, but personally, I just got back from seeing it as I'm sitting down here to record this, and I thought it was terrific. I liked it a lot, and this will be a spoiler-free review for those of you who are watching this before you have seen the film, so don't worry, I'm not going to ruin it for you. I'm not going to tell you anything that you haven't seen in the trailers or in interviews or what have you. I'm going to stick to stuff that's already been spoiled by the marketing. I'm not going to tell you about all of the cameos and all of that stuff, because I don't really care about that anyway. And the most wonderful surprise of the movie for me is that even though there are some cameos in the movie and there are some legacy characters who show up, the movie itself does not live or die on their presence and on how excited we are to see them. Quite the opposite. So the reason why Deadpool and Wolverine works so well for me, well, there are two reasons. The first reason is it's a Deadpool movie, not an MCU movie with Deadpool in it. And partially because of the way it's been marketed, partially because of the way it's been sort of positioned as the savior of the franchise, as the movie that's going to rejuvenate the MCU, I was a little afraid, even though it's rated R and even though it's, it's packed full of all the violence and profanity that you would expect from a Deadpool movie if you've seen the first two. Going in, I was a little nervous about the MCU-ification of Deadpool. And I say that as someone who generally is a big fan of the MCU. Like, I really like the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and I have either liked or loved almost all of the movies that have been released under that banner. But Deadpool is something else. Deadpool is his own thing. Deadpool has his own unique tone and approach and personality. And I was worried that even with the R rating, that personality would have been sanded down and kind of remolded to fit in more of an MCU shape. And I am very glad to report to you that, at least through my viewing of it, that did not happen. This is not an MCU movie with Deadpool in it. This is a Deadpool movie with some MCU stuff in it. And again, not all that much. You might be surprised if you go into the movie and you expect it to be like a cameo fest of just a bunch of MCU people, it's really not. The second thing is that it is funny as hell, which you would expect from a Deadpool movie. That's one of the strengths of the Deadpool films, is that they are really, really funny. This one is really, really funny. And for me, you can get away with a lot if you make me laugh. I have often said when I've reviewed other things, one of the most surefire ways to get me to love your movie or your TV show or whatever it is to get me to care about the characters and to make me believe that the characters care about each other. And actually, Deadpool and Wolverine does that too, but I'll get to that in a second. But the other surefire way to get me to love your show or your movie is to make me laugh. The rule of funny applies to me deep down all the way to my bones, right? The rule of funny, if you can make me laugh, then 9 times out of 10, I will at least like your movie. And Deadpool and Wolverine makes me laugh from the opening fade in all the way to the post-credit scene. It never forgets to be funny. A lot of movies, especially a lot of action movies that lean toward comedy, they hit a certain stretch where they just forget to be funny. Deadpool and Wolverine never forgets to be funny. It is making me laugh all the way through. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't stretches where it's not funny, where it does know when to turn it down and get a little more serious and a little more sincere and do some things to get you invested in the characters as people and not just as joke delivery machines. But it never forgets to turn it back up. It never forgets to turn it back up so that you get laughing again, and that draws you in. It's really fun, and it's funny in an irreverent way. And I think that is so important for a movie like this that does have a lot of fan service in it, that does have a lot of legacy characters kind of popping up and saying hello, because again, if you've watched my stuff before, if you've watched my Star Trek videos or my movie reviews of other things, you know that fan service is an Achilles heel for me. I have a very low tolerance for fan service. I have a very low tolerance for the feeling that the filmmakers are pandering to me or catering to me or showing me a character that I recognize, hoping that I'll just cheer because I see them, right? I hate that. It's lazy storytelling. It's catering and pandering and lowest common denominator. And it's almost always a mistake, and it's almost always done really poorly. And just as a rule, I despise it. So if you can get away with it, with me, that means you've done a really good job. And the way Deadpool and Wolverine gets away with it, especially with those little cameos that just kind of pop up and don't necessarily play a huge role in the story, but are here for a while and then move on to do something else. The reason that it gets away with all of that is because it does not take a reverent attitude toward these characters or toward this material. One of the secrets of Deadpool as a character, and especially in these films, is that Deadpool is like watching the bloodiest, most profane Looney Tunes cartoon you've ever seen. Deadpool has kind of a crush on Wolverine, and you can tell that he likes Wolverine genuinely and admires Wolverine genuinely, but they're also constantly sniping at each other, bickering with each other, insulting each other, fighting with each other in really, really violent ways. So there's not like, when they do occasionally get to the touchy-feely stuff, and I don't mean to diminish it or demean it by calling it touchy-feely, it worked. The earnest parts in the film work very well. But when it gets to those parts feel earned, because we haven't been subjected to, just this phony, superficial tear-jerkery, faux wholesomeness that a lot of movies sort of traffic in nowadays. It feels earned. Because even though Deadpool really likes Wolverine, there's also genuine conflict between them in terms of their personalities and in terms of physically. And when other characters show up, when the cameos start popping, Deadpool is always there to take the air out of the balloon. Deadpool is always there to throw in a joke or to undermine it or to not recognize somebody, or to recognize somebody but in a way that sort of cuts off the, oh, look who it is, like that kind of thing. Or in maybe the best example, to think that somebody is actually somebody else, which is one of the best jokes as far as legacy characters go in the movie. And I will certainly not spoil that, but it's fantastic. And that tone is set right at the beginning when, and again, no spoilers, I won't get into specifics here, but the opening credits scene is an answer to the question of how are they going to bring Wolverine back without undoing or undermining his tragic, heroic, beautiful death at the end of the movie Logan. How are they going to get away with this? And the answer is, as Deadpool himself says, they aren't. And the opening credits is an extended, just gloriously, gleefully irreverent desecration of the movie Logan. I mean, it lets you know right up front, hey, if you don't dig this, you're not going to dig the rest of the movie, because that is the attitude of the opening credits of Deadpool toward the movie Logan is the attitude of the entire film toward all the legacy characters and all of the legacy franchises that are kind of mixed in here. And it is glorious. I loved it. It is hilarious. It is exactly what this kind of movie needs. The multiverse stuff and the over-reliance on legacy characters in franchises like this and in Star Wars and Star Trek and other franchises where we're just being shown older actors returning to characters that they played 20 and 30 and 40 years ago, and we're just expected to just be glad they're here, to just wave at them and go, oh, look how nice, look who it is. Oh, look, it's the original Ghostbusters. Oh, how lovely. Oh, look, it's the crew of the Enterprise D from TNG. Look, there they are again. And we're just supposed to be happy to see them. And I guess that's supposed to be enough. And the creators of Deadpool and Wolverine are smart enough to realize that that's actually not enough. You have to do something with them, tell a story or make a joke. Make an actual joke, not just a reference, but a real joke, and make the audience laugh. And it really helps if you are not overly reverent to them. If you don't treat them, because like a lot of superhero movies and sci-fi movies that use legacy characters, when you watch them, it feels like a Jesus movie made by the most devout religious Christian in the world. Like it's almost like they're in awe, like the filmmakers are in awe of the characters and in awe of the material. And that's absolute death. That's absolute creative death. And Deadpool and Wolverine does not have that. Deadpool and Wolverine is not concerned about honoring the characters. It's not concerned about giving all the characters hand jobs and giving the audience hand jobs and congratulating them on liking all of these characters. It's interested in making a good movie, an exciting movie, a fun movie that makes you laugh. And then when you're least expecting it, or maybe you are expecting it because you've seen Deadpool movies before, comes right up and smacks you in the face with something that makes you actually feel something genuine. And you realize, oh shit, I care about these characters. Oh shit, I'm invested in their story, even though it's mostly quippy and crack up and, you know, very, very funny and I keep saying irreverent, but very irreverent. And then they sneak in something sincere on you and you're like, oh shit, that works. And see that, and again, that's a Deadpool movie. The secret weapon of the Deadpool movies up until this point has been the heart. They're incredibly funny, they're incredibly gory and violent, and they have this wonderful anarchistic sense to them. And yet, at the same time, there's always this kernel of sincerity and heart at the center that holds it all together and makes it feel like it actually means something. You know, it's not cynical. It's not just there to tear things down. It's there to make you laugh, but to make you feel all kinds of things. So Deadpool and Wolverine works very, very well on that level. It gets away with the cameos. It gets away with the fan service because it doesn't take them too seriously. It never takes itself too seriously. And yet at the same time, it manages to show us characters and tell us stories that still have emotional depth and weight when they need to. It's really well done. I'm not sitting here telling you it's the greatest movie ever made. I'm not sitting here telling you it's even the best Deadpool movie ever made. I don't know that it is. Or the best, X-Men franchise movie ever made. I don't think it is. But it's really, really good. It's a great time to sit there and watch it. It made me laugh the whole way through. Ryan Reynolds, of course, is wonderful as Deadpool. Hugh Jackman is terrific as Wolverine. This version of Wolverine, they do make a little bit of an effort to differentiate the Wolverine that is the character through most of the film from the original Wolverine who dies at the end of Logan, who was the hero of the X-Men franchise. They do kind of, take some steps to separate him and let us know it's basically the same guy, but technically it's a different guy. And he has some of his own story to tell and some of his own issues to work through. And the supporting cast, and I can't talk too much about the supporting cast because that'll spoil things for you, but Matthew McFadden as Mr. Paradox from the TVA, who you see in the trailers, he's fantastic. Emma Corrin as Cassandra Nova, who ends up kind of being the main villain of the piece, is really good. The character as written is really nothing special, but her performance and her screen presence really, really livens it up and makes Cassandra Nova a really terrific villain. And ultimately, it's a movie about people who rediscover what's important to them. Wolverine has to rediscover what's important to him, has to rediscover who he is and what he cares about. And maybe stop hiding from things he cares about. Deadpool is fighting for what he cares about. It's fighting for the people he cares about. The movie is about characters who never forget what's really important. And the movie works because the people who made the movie don't forget what's really important. And if it's a Deadpool movie, the most important things are the laughs, which are here in abundance, and the story and the characters. And it gets all three of them exactly right. And it does it in a way that is funny and irreverent. I keep saying that word. I can't think of a synonym for irreverent at the moment as I sit here recording this. It keeps that attitude. It keeps that personality. It keeps that tone all the way through. And it is because of that tone and that incredible ability to move you while also making you laugh at sometimes the most hideously gory, bloody stuff you've ever seen in a superhero movie, that it's not just that it works, it's almost impossible to critique. I mean, there have been people who have given it negative reviews, but as I sat there watching it in the theater today, I thought to myself, this movie is just so much fun and so funny and so enjoyable, it's difficult to critique it. So because of that, much like its two title characters, Deadpool and Wolverine the movie, for me anyway, was pretty much bulletproof.